All right. We are live with episode 1 of the People Matter podcast. I think next time we'll do a shorter countdown. 30 seconds seems a little long there, but so welcome everyone to the People Matter live podcast. It's a Latitude podcast, and with me right now is the CEO of Latitude, Pete Schramm. Pete, how are you today?
Hey guys, doing great. Matt, how are you? Happy, what do we got today? Wednesday? Happy Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes. The days all blending together. So since it's the first episode, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing the podcast, kind of a little background for you, Pete, and Latitude itself. But obviously we talked about doing this for, we look around the environments and look around within, the business realms and all the things that are going on in technology, and just kind of saw a place where, we should really start to do this to not only have a place that we can discuss, bring other experts on here for the podcast, talk about technology today and things that are going on. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world of AI, in the SaaS world we can talk about. So a number of things we can discuss there. But I just wanted to start with you, Pete, and just give your thoughts around why we're doing the podcast, and a little bit of your background of how Latitude even came about. And then we can kind of jump over and start talking about some cool technology things.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for putting all this together, Matt. And thanks everybody for listening. So I'll talk a little bit about the why first, because if we don't start off with that piece, does anything else really matter? And will anything else really get done? Right. And that's a theme that we can translate to implementing kinds of technology like this. So the reason for Latitude is that people changed my life. Plain and simple. I wouldn't be where I am today without the amazing mentors, sponsors, allies, peers, buddies, all the people on your personal board of advisors that helped me. Starting off on the farm in Western Pennsylvania is my family, right? Those are the ones that said, hey, do this, don't do that, kind of keep me on the straight and narrow, if you will. And then I got into, high school, and it's, public high school, transitioned to a private high school at Swickley Academy. And it's like, whoa, there's more to life than, going to work at the, local business that, you knew growing up. And then I got into college, and I was, fortunate to get recruited to play basketball and track. And I was like, whoa, okay, so there's a whole lot out here in this world. And the more conversations that I had, the more people that I met, I realized, oh my gosh, it really comes down to, who you know, not only what you know. And over the next couple of years, I said, well, why don't we have both, right? Let's find the who and learn the what. And so whenever I started my professional career, I realized that it's easier said than done. So after a couple of years of working and manually, connecting people, having more conversations, I think we're up to like 19 notebooks since the day I graduated college of a little bit of, each of the things that I did each day, and the discussions and the people that I met and talked with and the connections I made. I was like, So on March 4th of 2018, I'm living in Northwest Washington, D.C. I said, geez, there's got to be a better way to bring people together for intentional, sustainable connections. And I kind of looked at, where's there a problem to solve? And what do I love doing? And what am I really good at? So that's where this idea of a company really came from, is bringing people together with intention to save time. At the end of the day, right, we're all busy professionals and we got a lot of things going on in our lives. So that's kind of the impetus for all of it. And over the last couple of years, we did a lot. We figured out what is it that we're doing? Why are we continuing to do this? How's it actually going to work? And they don't really teach you how to build a software company in engineering school. Or grad school for engineering, for the matter. So it's been a lot of learning, and amazing people have joined the team, like Matt and others along the way, and we're grateful for that as well. So we think about what Latitude's trying to do. It's really bring people together for intentional, sustainable connection. There's lots out there. We'll talk about employee engagement overall, but it's kind of like, hey, what really matters is having the necessary conversations and digging into like the who, what, when, where, why, how. And that's why we created this platform.
Absolutely. So creating the platform and using SaaS. So we're going to talk about technology. So why did you think about SaaS right away? Why do you think that's kind of the best way? And for those who don't know, SaaS, software as a service, and that's there's a number of different companies out there that use that platform, and obviously Latitude is one of them, and how that's going to work. And tell me, talk about the little bit of the flexibility of why you decided to use the SaaS product, and kind of the how it can help companies, and how we kind of ramp up quickly for companies when they need it.
Yeah, we live in a society where instant gratification is kind of expected. We think about this in personal, professional. You get an issue with your Wi-Fi, right? You're on a chat or something with the Comcast or the Armstrongs. Oh my gosh, I don't have Wi-Fi right now. I need to get up and running, and like by yesterday, by 10 minutes ago. So we expect things available at our fingertips. Think about banking, right? You can log on to your bank and do just about anything. Uber, right? Grab a taxi. All these things. We want to have the access to the solutions much faster and much quicker. So that's why the software as a service approach is helpful. And let's also, think about it, Matt. The world's changed. We are not all in the office anymore. My team was a defense contractor. We went kind of hybrid before it was trendy to go hybrid, because we were growing so fast and there wasn't space in the office. So right, wrong, or indifferent, the world's changed. And I like to call this WFX, right? Work from anywhere society. So how can we meet our people where they are? And there's a multitude of different, solutions that are out there whenever it comes to employee engagement, productivity, communications. Lots of us have seen tools like Zoom and Teams, Skype, WebEx, BlueJeans, right? There's a bunch of them out there for us to get work done. So it's delivering value where people are when they need it, and reducing some of those steps and friction points in the process. Not all SaaS is created equal, and SaaS is not always the answer, right? We think, oh, sprinkle some technology on this, it's going to solve all our problems. Well, there's a lot of thinking that we have to go into that before we launch or implement a solution like this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think when you use the phrase high tech, high touch, and I think that really matters here, because we're dealing with employee engagement. We're dealing with people. That's why it's called People Matter Podcast. So at the end of the day, as much as technology can help and we can do these things, we are dealing with people, and we're dealing with individuals, and we're dealing with people's careers, company growth. All of these things matters. So when you're looking at this, you don't want to get lost in the technology of what can be done. And we'll talk a little bit about AI and some exciting things there. But that also gives people some pause, and you made a great point, especially obviously during the pandemic, a lot of people, when I say lots, probably about 90%, either, went remote, or had to figure out something to do in that way. And we've seen more recently, more people coming back to the office. But, we have companies that are spread out around the country. So they, why they might all be in the office, they're separated. And why, we see some people coming back, you're going to have a hybrid, for a lot of companies. So we have this, influx kind of thing where we look at this and we look at the technology. And the most important thing is that communication. It is keeping people together to make sure that they're on the same page, and be able to have these meetings. And you mentioned Zoom and some other great platforms. Obviously, Zoom had a lot of success during the pandemic, but they are limited when we're talking about employee engagement, and we're talking about these one-on-one mentorships. And even, if you want to talk a little bit about, a personal board of advisors, when you start to have those kind of conversations a little more in depth, and keeping track of agendas, keeping track of all these things, that's really where, technology can play a much better role. And can be designed specifically for that, as opposed to just a cool, like you and I are streaming right now using StreamYard to all these different platforms, and that's great. But we need to go a little more in depth with the engagement part. So do you want to discuss that a little bit? How we can kind of really take that next level of making sure all those things stay on track, and we have all that communication not only there going into it, but coming out of these meetings, or come out of employee surveys of what are the next steps.
Yeah, I think there's an approach we need to think about. It's a phased implementation, right? If we just jump from 0 to 60, 60 being organization-wide implementation of a software as a service for bringing our people together, it's going to be pretty difficult. So we like to think about, hey, why are we doing this? Talked about that earlier. And what is it that we're trying to achieve, right? So starting off with that, and then typically there's like some education that goes into this piece, right? So we get into a little bit of a cadence. People understand, Okay, like we're talking about this mentorship stuff. Somebody came in and they talked about personal board of advisors, right? Who are those individuals? We can put a link to some more information about that in the comments here. But it's really figuring out, hey, I got to do this thing. But going back to the who, what, when, where, why, how, if we have a roadmap or something of an SOP, a little bit of a structure to follow, then these things can be successful. So first thing is, whenever leadership says, hey, we're going to do this, to make sure that leadership is indeed bought in. So we have that top down buy-in, but we also want to make sure that we're not doing this in a vacuum. So we get that bottoms up feedback. So we're kind of meeting in the middle whenever we do some kind of implementation. It doesn't just apply to software, but whenever it falls short, it's typically because we didn't do enough planning at the beginning, right? I come from program management background, a lot of planning at the beginning. What's that one saying, Matt, where Abe Lincoln or somebody says, if I was going to chop down a tree and I had to do it in 6 hours, I'd spend the first 4 hours, planning it out and sharpening my axe, right? Same thing here. We want to, take that approach so that we're doing it the right way. And it's not always the right time. There's a lot of things going on in the business. There's a lot of things that are happening, moving parts, right? People are coming, people are going. But whenever, we find that internal champion, and we say, hey, this is your job. You have the resources, the time, the people, the things you need to succeed. A lot of folks just say, hey, we're going to do this. And they kind of check a box, but where's the ongoing communication? Where are those, items that you measure over time? So we need to make sure that we start off on the right foot and build that necessary foundation from day one.
Yeah. So if we look at some of the let me pull up an article here that'll kind of talk some about some of this stuff. So, well, hold on 1 second. That's not going to work. So let's keep talking about it. So let's talk a little more technology. Then I'll go through this because that's not working now. So some of the things, obviously, with AI that we see coming up, and talking a lot about that with ChatGPT and other things. So where do you see AI being a benefit, and where do we see AI maybe not being a good use for this? And we've seen AI talk about in school and how students might be using it to write papers for them or other things. So we've seen the kind of good and bad of it. But let's start with the good parts first of doing employee engagement properly and having these mentorship relationships and everything. Where do you see that fitting into to this whole process?
Yeah, so I think ChatGPT and other AI tools have changed the game. We have some AI in Latitude software. We worked on it, this year, last year, and there's a lot more that's coming, right? So it's here, and it's a tool in our tool belt, right? It's something else that we can pull out and we can use, and it's a supplement and a complement, but it's not a replace everything. And I like to think of these solutions that people might get for their organizations. And I think Richard was the one that gave us this analogy. So shout out to Richard for this. You kind of have like the Terminator, where it's entirely a machine and it just press go and that's what happens. And you have Iron Man, Batman, right, where there is indeed a man in the loop. So you have to figure out, for your organization, do you want something where you just press go and there's no customization, there's no, changing of things? Is it going to do what you need for your organization? And are you okay without that human touch, without being able to pick up the phone? So just think about kind of what's the best fit for your organization. Because whenever it comes to AI, right, it can guide us through how to do things. It can guide us through, streamlining some processes. Hey, pulling up some of what did we talk about last? What should we do next? But it's not going to replace what me and you can do here together entirely, at least today. Right, Matt? There's so many things, even our conversations. It's like, hey, I'm just I hear what you're saying, but it's not really clicking. Even earlier today, right? It's just those pieces of, you're not going to get that through AI, right? So I think AI is a tool that can help us and guide us and save us some time. I like to use ChatGPT for some ideation, right? And one, concept is, if you don't have another person in your office or, to work with, you can almost bounce ideas off of the AI in that capacity. So You mentioned the students using this report. I think it's fine to use technology to support and to get you started. Like even the book that we're writing, right? We'll put some of the concepts into AI to get a little bit of feedback and iterate. But by no means are we going to say, hey, input something, copy and paste, boom, done. That's not how it's going to work. So the ability to ask better questions, to do prompting, is getting a lot better. Corey talks about this a lot. Shout out to Corey. It's things that we're learning a lot, and there's a lot of unknowns. But we had to think of this as a solution that complements us and a tool that we can pull out of our toolbox.
Right. Yeah, I think specifically when we're looking at AI and what it can do, especially around the surveys for larger companies. Obviously, you can go through data much quicker than anyone could, in the past. And there's been obviously systems to this point that have been doing it. But looking at AI and the way you can play with the data, look at the data, come up with reports and everything, that can be done much more efficiently, much quicker. But you make a good point. At the end of the day, what does that mean as far as does that make a difference to employee A and employee B and employee C? Does that really answer the questions that they have? Does that really, kind of bring all that together? So I think when we look at that, that technology and then look at, as you said, something like ChatGPT, excuse me, because they're leading the charge on AI right now. There's lots of systems out there that can do lots of different things. That you can look at ways to kind of improve that overall. Put in, and as you mentioned, prompts. Put in things and say, here's specifically what we're looking for. Here's what our organization is, the size of it, how many employees. Are we all, in one location, multiple locations, all these things, and really start to use it, come up with ideas and thoughts around how do we build out these programs? How can we start to do these things and start to look in a different way than maybe you have in the past? Because if we look at, so let me try to present again while I'm talking. If we look at where companies are and what they're looking at, they're not happy right now with kind of where they're at and what they're going through when we look at some of these things. So if we look at some of the articles I can pull up here, we can see. I don't want to sign up right now. Oh, thank you. This is a good one from Business Insider for the second year in a row. Federal workers feel less engaged in their jobs, and we could pull that up for multiple companies. So when we look at kind of some of the things that they're talking about here and some of the reasons why, Pete, I think we're seeing this across the board with it. So while technology can help in some areas, you're still seeing these employee satisfaction in some cases at an all-time low. So what can we do as far as doing some of those things? I don't think you talked about the personal board of advisors yet. And maybe bringing programs like that into companies. When you want to talk a little bit about that and how we can kind of help to do this, since that is our mission and latitude, is to help improve these and get these numbers going the other way.
Yeah, so we think about employee engagement and what really matters. We can say, hey, let's invest in our people. And it's kind of like, okay, well, let's go boil the ocean at the same time. So if we look at, I think there's an HBR article I read earlier today. According to human resource experts, HR people, right, the top drivers of employee engagement, and I agree with these, trust and confidence in our senior leaders. Okay, if we don't have trust, that foundation, how in the world can we build anything upon that? Well-being is a big piece of kind of how do we get the trust conversation started. So Matt Diabas is fantastic whenever he comes to this, right? Chief scientist for Latitude. And he's taught us a lot about this piece, right? What is well-being? How do you measure it? And how do you actually track this over time? So let's start off with trust. And then let's figure out, hey, how can we, there you go. Yeah. So how can we give the opportunities for career growth and advancement? If I don't think I'm going to be, making it somewhere else in an organization, am I going to stay here? Right. So by investing in our people, we're going to see that they invest in us over time. And as a result of that, if the work's not meaningful and I don't feel valued, I don't feel like, hey, I can do A, B, and C, but you're only, asking me to do D right now. That's going to kind of make me scratch my head. And especially with the millennials and Gen Z, right? The meaning of work, the purpose of work, especially while I'm not working together, with everybody elbow to elbow at the office or in my cube, we need more and more of that. The first year turnover statistics are nuts, right? Most of the folks that voluntarily leave organizations are gone in the first year. I don't know if it's up to like 60% or 80% of first year turnover.
What kind of cost there is around that when you have that employee turnover, especially in that first year? You remember some of those numbers?
So it's overall $1 trillion turnover problem in the United States. And for organizations with even 200 employees, it can be over $1 million a year whenever we look at that overall turnover cost calculation.
Yep. And that's, and I mean, interrupt the point you were making, but, in doing that, yeah, obviously that is a big thing, especially right now for companies looking to cut back and rather than looking at, doing layoffs and doing some of these other things, if you can do more of this up front and have some of these in place and plan this out a little better, then, you can save the money up front and save the cost of employee turnover and some of the other things. So when it comes to, times when it's the economy the way it is now, we don't have to have as many layoffs or some of the things that we're seeing right now within the marketplace. So there's another article here on Forbes had a pretty good article. So
while you're pulling that one up, Matt,
it's
something for us to think of. Whether our company's in hiring or firing mode right now, we still need to invest in our people. And something that we hear a lot with Latitude is, I don't have time for this right now. We got a lot of cutbacks right now. Okay, are you going to stop taking care of your people? Are you going to stop investing in them? Because whenever you stop, think of this as your internal research and development. This is your IRAD to your core human capital of what's going on. You wouldn't stop investing in some of those research projects entirely, right? You're going to still be planning for the future. So we need to take a similar approach to that. How do we keep investing and researching and developing our future workforce? And we think about, the early, career, folks, they're getting trained, they're getting up and running. How do we keep them here so they can get to mid-level management? Because that's where the big gap is. And how many people are getting ready to retire or already have prematurely retired as part of the pandemic? They said, hey, I'm out of here, right? Or they said, hey, I don't need this anymore, right? I'm going to do something that I absolutely love. Right? I don't have somebody that I'm not connected with. I can't relate to. So we really need to think about, this employee engagement as a sustainable, proactive approach to investing in our future. And it really is. It's an investment, right? It's not something that's going to, necessarily pay off tomorrow, but maybe next week, next month. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we can see some of those results. And it's something that we can point to whenever we're attracting, new folks to our organization. So you talk about like, we need to hire folks, hire. Great. What are you doing to take care of the people that you have right now?
Yep, absolutely. And this was a good article again. So this is more around mentoring, but again, the way we kind of look at employee engagement and look at that mentoring relationship is very important, especially when you think about it. You think about individual mentoring, or maybe entrepreneurs have mentors a lot, but within organizations, it's something that does not take place anywhere near as much as it should, and it's something that we did a panel previously, and there was some really good feedback from people that were on the panel as far as mentoring and what that meant to them and how it helped them in their career. And I don't think organizations look at that as much as they should, and to that. So this kind of goes through some of the secrets on there, finding the right match and make expectations clear. Training and support, and be specific. And that's kind of what we're talking about here with some of the technology, is not only, developing that mentor relationship, but using systems like Latitude to really be able to be specific, be clear, make that trackable. It's a lot of times, people don't look at it as that trackable relationship, as those things over time that you can go back to. You can refer back to notes and conversations that you had last month or 6 months ago. So that's one of those things. Again, I brought the board of advisors a couple times, but why do you think organizations don't do the mentorship part as much, or are as planned out with the mentorship as they are with some of the other things?
Yeah, so let's start off with why we don't necessarily do the mentorship piece the right way or the full way. We might get started. Some of the statistics, 71% of Fortune 500 companies have a mentorship program of some sort. Okay, good. That's a check in the box. We're heading in the right direction. Whenever I dug in and researched and actually talked to many of these companies, you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised, that they might have like an Excel file, right? Not everybody has a
Mhm.
solution like a SaaS, for example, to utilize. So big companies, Fortune 100s even, are managing their mentorship programs with Excel. Hey, here's some of the things that people want to talk about. Here's some of the other things that they want to learn about, and then we're going to track, all these different details over time. So one of your questions, Matt, is why aren't we doing this? Because typically mentorship programs are hey, this is your job role in charge of marketing, and you're going to work on brand awareness. Oh, and let me scooch this mentorship thing onto your plate as well, because I know you're only working 10 hours a day, so what's another 2-3 hours on top of that, right? So it's not a priority 1A or 1B or 2 or even 3 sometimes. So it's a nice to have, but not always a need to have in some people's eyes. And that's where, if we think about this as like our research and development for our company, you would never skimp it. That is indeed a need to have. And you
Sure.
see in some of these articles about what are the results and the outputs and the impacts on the other side when this is done the right way. No leader would ever say no to things like that.
Right.
The other piece is it can be tough, right? Not a lot of us are, taught about mentorship programs and how to effectively do this and implement it and integrate it in school, right? So, people analytics classes are popping up, and we're getting more around, employee engagement certifications and things like that. Schramm does a fantastic job. There's lots of places to learn, but let's face it, Matt, if we're, kind of sick, we go to the doctor. If our mouth hurts, we go to the dentist. If we break a bone, we go to the orthopedic surgeon, right? Something like that. Whenever it comes to like mentorship, why don't we go to the mentorship people? Whenever it comes to employee engagement, sometimes we don't have the resources internally. Sure, do your make buy analysis, nothing wrong against that. But let's go to the people that know what's going on, and the experts, to save us time, to save us frustration, to save us money, and to ultimately save our people, right? Save that knowledge that's walking out the door.
And that's where, to kind of bring it back to technology, that's where the technology comes into play, of having a system rather than a spreadsheet, a system where it says Pete can put in there and say, listen, I know these 4 subjects, whether they're internal to the organization, or you're talking about leadership, you're talking about communication, you're talking about public speaking, whatever it is. I know these topics like the back of my hand. You can also use, obviously, technology to learn more of these things, and to improve how you would be able to teach this. It's one thing to know, it's another thing to be able to be a good mentor, and be able to teach these to people, and you can use some of these platforms to kind of learn that, and go through those things. So
So
this is
Matt, on that one, I want to just talk a little bit about some of the
sure.
training around it, right? If we say, hey, go use this tool, and maybe it looks like a hammer or something, people would say, okay, well, I have this thing, right? How do I use it? Right. So if we said they could, build a house, they could pound in nails, it could be a paperweight, it could break a window. Right? There's a lot of different use cases for these different tools. So that's where this integration process and implementation process is so, so important. And so going back to the piece of the personal board of advisors, right? This is how we like to structure this, right? I gave my TED talk on this a couple of months ago. And it's a way where we incorporate a couple of different mentors, not just one. Let's get rid of those single points of failure, and how we can sort of bring some lean Six Sigma, to this process. How can we do more with less and have some repeatability in this process? So when we think of the personal board, think of this concept of a couple of different folks that you're going to engage and connect with. We recommend a 30-minute conversation, over a quarterly period. You're not going to talk to every single person every single week. Maybe you don't even talk to every person on your personal board every single month. But think about those folks that you're engaging with, connecting with, that are invested in your career growth, up, down, side to side, right? Mentors are not always older than us. Our peers and our buddies are not always younger than us or our same age, right? Think about it from leaving the title at the door and bringing your experience to the table. Your ally, right? This is something that I didn't really know much about until the last couple of years. And to be able to share those experiences with people that have a very different life that they've lived. Let's face it, there's a bunch of things that I don't know, right? Given where I've come from in my journey through life. So having a little bit of structure and training people on, hey, here's how you do this. Here's a couple of questions you can ask in conversation one as a mentor mentee, right? The baseline assessment. Let's figure out where are we starting from as an organization. Do we really need a mentorship program? Do we really need a connection program? Or is there something else? Right. So going to the Gemba, right, and actually getting to the root cause of all of it, we got to get some information first before we can figure out what makes sense.
Sure. And on this article, the last point and this Forbes said this, not us, make it mandatory. So that's one of those things where it's not only mandatory for for your employees, but mandatory for you to put something in place. Make it mandatory for you to make sure that you're worried about the growth of the employees. Make it mandatory that you make sure that their employees are engaged and you're truly looking at satisfaction levels and on all those things. So,
and on that, Matt, there are some really successful companies out there that focus your annual review, your performance review, on the people that you help develop and grow and promote in your organization. So why don't, if these big successful companies are doing this, why can't other companies that are striving to be like that do something like this? So we think about those different connections, and also, hey, what about ESG, right? Environment, social, and governance. We're going to have to do some more reporting on that soon. Hey, how do we measure some of the social aspects of things if it's not required? And an easy place to start, everybody, is your manager one-on-ones. I don't care if it's each week, every other week, each month, at least every month. Hopefully it's more than just once a month. And just having those check-ins. What'd you do last, right? Start, stop, continue, shift. 4 easy questions to take in with you to any of those check-ins that you're doing. Easy way to start, track it, and get the metrics. So whenever you're looking at these different SaaS solutions, looking at different technology, make sure you understand what those reports are going to look like over time. That's one of the cool pieces about Latitude, why people get excited. They're like, hold on a second, you're going to measure, then you're going to give the kind of what's next to the survey, and then you're going to share reports to us over time, and you actually share those recommendations. Try and get everything that you actually need in one place, because again, it's not one size fits all. And the job and the goal of these different service providers is to ultimately make your life easier, right? Add a lot of value, not a lot of time.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So we are at our time here. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say in closing, but I wanted to pull this up real quick. So if you go to golatitude.com is the website. I talked a little bit about the panels that we did. So if you just go in here, go to resources, you can click on resources, the Latitude blog right here, and it'll take you here. There's a number of different panels that we did. I was specifically talking about the mentoring on the panel. So if you want to go check that out, some really good information in there. You can really delve down into with the panel discussions that we had and just the importance of those relationships and how each of these people talk about through their careers and growth, what that meant to them. So it's a really good one to refer back to. But Pete, anything else in closing here? And
I think it's important to have a couple of similarities in these podcasts as we move forward, right? So in the future, I think it'd be good for us to, share kind of the story of your find your Brian, right? So as we're talking about employee engagement, let's put all the tech aside, put all of it aside. Like, what's your story, right? So as we get some of the guests that come on in the future, right? And we've done some of these exercises with our team, right? What is it that like really gets you going, right? Who was that person? Right. And then to also think about, hey, ice bucket challenge effect. Who else, could benefit from sharing their story about employee engagement and technology and mentorship in this topic? So I think if we were to look forward and, welcome, ideas, feedback, and comments from the rest of the community watching this now and in the future, there's a lot of different things that we can explore, but it's really, how do we win together? How do we grow together? We're stronger together. Let's make it happen. And whenever we do this with intention, a little bit of structure, it's sustainable, it can scale, and we're literally changing lives.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today on the flagship podcast, the number one episode. So as Pete said, we're looking forward to, having more experts, subject matter experts, just, everyday people, kind of dealing with some of these issues we're talking about, how they're dealing, and most importantly, their story. Why does this matter? Because that's why it's called, the People Matter podcast, where we're focused on the people, how this will help them, how this will help the organizations overall. So appreciate your time. Appreciate you listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time.